Welcome to Red, White, and Blue. From the right, I'm Gary Polland.
And from the left, I'm David Jones.
Tonight we welcome the candidates for the United States House of Representatives, 22nd Congressional District of Texas. First, Republican incumbent Congressman Pete Olson. Second, Democratic candidate Keisha Rogers. And finally, Libertarian candidate Stephen Sussman. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, guys.
So, Congressman Olson, you're the only one that will have a vote, perhaps, in next year's Congress. Why don't you tell us whether or not you have anything ready to go, since we all assume, Gary especially, that you will be in a majority position. You have anything ready to go for those three committees where you serve that we can expect to see passed into law?
David, we're hoping to have a majority, but we're going to work very hard in the next couple weeks to ensure that. And once we do get that majority, I think you guys are aware we put out a thing called the Pledge to America, and that's a governing document of what we will do if we're privileged to be the majority again in Congress. I can tell you just a couple things right now that are coming up very quickly. Extending the tax cuts of 2001 and 2003. If this Democrat Congress doesn't step up to the plate and do that before we adjourn in January, the largest tax increase in American history is going to occur. And we're going to make our government more responsible to the people, more open. When we file a bill, it will have to be available to the general public for 72 hours before it's voted on. Every bill that's introduced is going to have a constitutional justification why that bill complies with the Constitution. These are just a few of the things that we're going to do. We have to take America back from this out-of-control Democrat president and Democrat majority in Congress.
I want to ask Keisha, why did you run for Congress, and what would you hope to accomplish if you were elected?
Well, I ran for Congress first and foremost because we don't have real leadership. We have people who are willing to compromise and play the game of go along to get along. And right now we're faced with the greatest economic collapse that the country has seen. We're moving toward hyperinflation and trillions of dollars in bailouts to the Wall Street financial interests, while there is no real economic solution to this crisis, is not the answer. And it's not the answer for Republicans to say that they're going to play the card of riding on the anti-democratic sentiment instead of actually providing a real solution, because the solution right now has to be, as my campaign has put forth, a return to Glass-Steagall banking reorganization and also a real science driver in productive economy. Because there's not going to be an economic solution with a monetary solution for a physical collapse. And that's what we're seeing right now, an all-out physical collapse, high rates of unemployment, and we need real solutions to it. And that's what I've provided. And we need people to step up to the plate. And it's not going to happen as long as people are compromising, and secondly, compromising with this president. Because I'm the Democrat that's calling for the president's removal, and calling for his removal not as a political stunt, but calling for his removal because you have a president that is unfit and unqualified to run for office or to remain in office. And so we need a real economic solution, and we got to get people to get out of this party line and actually say that we're going to act on the principle of a nation state, the principle of a real republic. So get out of parties, go for real principles, real solutions, and that's what I'm doing. That's what we need right now.
Steve, how about you're running as the Libertarian candidate? Why do you want to go to Congress?
Well, we don't have long enough on this show, so I'll just start. I'll start with a few of my pet peeves. Wall Street dominates our administration. It dominates the Congress, the Senate. Everybody seems to get these big donors, corporations, and it doesn't belong to the people anymore. Industry is going down the tubes in America. Our automotive industry is a disaster. I've experienced that myself. All my neighbors work in it. We're all suffering. We're all stopped, and we're tired of waiting. We're going out here and do something about it.
I guess your libertarian means you want to do what this guy Grover Norquist says he would like to see done, which is reduce the government to the size of a bathtub and then drown it in the bathtub. Is that it?
Well, that's not quite accurate. I'm a libertarian with a twist. I'm a little bit more right-leaning, and I don't agree with all of the platform of the party. But we need to take action. We need to stop messing around and making all of these courtesy bills like dedicating post offices. We need to face the hard issues and hit it hard like a bulldozer, get something done.
Now, one question related to that, Steve, is Congressman Ron Paul, who's a Republican/Libertarian member of Congress, is he one of your inspirations?
He is one of my inspirations, but I'm kind of on the fence because he endorsed all the Republicans incumbents in the Texas race. That doesn't make me very happy.
Mr. Olson.
That's
I'm
correct.
okay with that. I'll admit that.
Did you vote for the bailout that was first proposed and authored by a Commerce Secretary who was a Republican under the administration of George Bush? Did you end up voting for that?
David, if you're talking about the bailout that was passed in the stimulus bill. TARP? I was not a member of Congress when that bill was passed.
Would you have voted for it?
I would not have voted for it.
So it was not a success?
I don't think it was a success.
You know they have an 8% return now on that investment.
Well, they've spent a lot of money, and our economy is still just stagnating right now.
Have any problems with a return of 8% on the congressional handout to Wall Street, or not? Do you like the credit now that has returned to the United States?
There's no credit that's returned. The whole system is bankrupt.
So you can't get a loan anywhere?
Hardly not.
When's the last time you tried?
Oh, I haven't tried in a while, but I can tell you many citizens of the country that have been foreclosed on have tried to get loans, can't get loans right now, and because we're bailing out trillions more dollars in the Wall Street financial interests without a real economic solution to this crisis. So look what Bernanke just called for just a second ago, another bailout, what we're calling, quote-unquote, quantitative easing. This is not what I call an economic solution. Economic solution to a physical collapse cannot start with bailing out Wall Street. It has to start with rebuilding our industries, rebuilding our science program, rebuilding our agriculture, our science and technology. And you have the highest rate of unemployment ever right now.
I don't think that Congressman Olson mentioned other tax cuts that were enacted during the Obama administration, which were targeted to middle income and lower. They are also going to expire at the end of this year. Are you going to be for extending those tax cuts, and if so, along with the Bush tax cuts, which we know are going to cost us $4 trillion, how are you going to pay for that?
Well, David, those Obama tax cuts
over 10 years. I mean, it's just no money.
They were included in bills. You know, we've got this $900 billion stimulus package, which hasn't created the jobs that the president promised. We've got a cap and tax bill, which, if it ever become acted into law, and it's not, would do tremendous damage to our American economy. We've passed this nearly $1 trillion health care bill, which isn't delivering its promise to give adequate, affordable health care to every American. It's going to cost every American much, much money, and it's going to destroy our health care system as we know it. We're the best health care system in the world, and people that say we aren't, they really, really frustrate me. Why are people coming from all over the world to America to get their health care unless we're the best? This president's health care proposal is killing our small businesses. It's increasing our debt and our deficit. It's got to be stopped. He's got to be stopped. That's what I've been fighting for since I've been a member of Congress.
I would have a follow-up question I want to hear from everyone. First you, Pete. We repeal Obamacare, then what do we do? I mean, I think everyone's agreed that the system, the way it is not sustainable. I personally, on the show, have described Obamacare as taking the present system and administering steroids to it and then saying, hey, everything's okay. So what do? We abolish Obamacare. We still got issues.
In contrast to what my Democrat opponents said, we Republicans had alternatives to every major bill that came through. The stimulus package, we had an alternative where we would stimulate small businesses without breaking the bank. The cap and tax bill, we had an alternative, basically all the above from the last Congress, where we develop American sources of energy right here, creating American jobs, make us less dependent upon foreign oil, and giving us economic freedom. And to the health care bill, here's what we do on that one, Gary. We believe that small businesses, that the economy, the market, is the solution to our problems. We should give small businesses the opportunity to pool together for insurance purposes, become a bigger pool, drive the cost down. Insurance should go across state lines, portability, individual, and both competition.
So you're for, let me see if you understand it, that you're for repealing present law, which says that there are no out-of-pocket expenses for preventive care, that sick children cannot be excluded from policies, that parents can cover 26-year-olds on their policies, and there's no dropping sick people off the insurance rolls, and no lifetime benefits controls. So are you for repealing all of those advantages that people now have?
David, I'm for repealing a health care bill that the American public rejected last year. since about August of 2009, the American people were polled over and over and over and said, we don't want this massive, massive health care bill, all comprehensive. We want you guys in Washington to listen to us and fix parts of this system without breaking the bank, without increasing our national debt, and without decreasing the cost of the health care quality for every American. That's what Obamacare has done. And I am going to fight to repeal it and replace it with common sense solutions.
Is there any other poll anybody would like to cite as, support for law here at the table?
No, but I will say this. I'm sorry, but I did not see any real solutions and opposition to this president's policies from Mr. Olson, his party, and so forth, because what I saw is capitulation. What I saw is that instead of actually going after this president and calling for his ouster and removal, instead of actually not capitulating to the shutdown or dismantling or underfunding of our space program, I saw capitulation in terms of, for example, the shutdown of Constellation and so forth, other projects.
That's an impeachable offense, to shut down Constellation?
Is it an impeachable offense?
Yeah.
The impeachable offense is that we're taking away a real science driver from the country, that you have a president that is unfit and has a personality failure to run for office.
That's what elections are for.
That's what elections.
You're going to impeach the president for policy differences, Mr.
That's
Olson?
not the battle that needs to be fought here, but I want to respond to my Democrat opponents, some of their statements about our positions and capitulation. The Democrats in Congress pushed this thing through. I mean, they did not listen to the American people. They believe that we know better than the American people. They work for us. Wrong. We worked for the American people, and we fought like heck. We voted against their bill. But my Democrat opponent's party just jammed it down the American people's throat. One vote on the floor of the House of Representatives in final passage. That is not the democracy our founding fathers envisioned. And we get the privilege and the honor of taking the majority back in the Congress. I can assure you we're doing everything I can to repeal the Obama plan and replace it with quality, affordable health care that does what we want it to do.
But since when does it say in the Constitution that the government should force people to buy anything at any point in the first place? We don't need a plan. We need to reevaluate the medical care in this country, period. We need to stop overcharging people. I've seen people in hospital bills, Tylenol, $10, reusable pillows and sheets billed out to patients. There's a huge amount of theft and fraud in this industry, and if government's going to do something, they should maybe turn the spotlight on this area of health care, not tell us you're going to buy insurance or you're going to do this or we're going to send the IRS out after you. That's not very conducive to popular belief.
Yeah. Speaking of the IRS, Congressman, maybe you can enlighten us. How is it in the Obama care bill, we ended up with a rider that required every business to do a 1099 for $600 they spend to anyone. So, for example, I sent David a check. I mean, I don't know if I'd make
That's
that mistake,
not happening.
but I do. For $600. I'd have to actually do paperwork to tell the government.
Yeah, you raised a great something that came up after the bill was passed. Again, the majority jammed this through this. The Democrat Party did do this. And we found out subsequently that there's this 1099 requirement. And I was really hit by this at a town hall meeting I had when the coach of a Little League team, the manager of a Little League, said, Pete, I'm worried. I think I'm going to have to fill out a 1099 to operate our Little League. Well, exactly. I mean, we have to go out and purchase about $3,000 worth of goods every year, seed, dirt, chalk to make the field ready for the games. Again, $3,000. And if I go out and do that, I'm going to have to fill out a 1099.
Ms. Rogers, you talk about an economic collapse. So,
yeah.
Does this mean that you have a plan? Because I haven't heard it yet from anyone to balance the budget, or do you think a balanced budget is not part of an economic recovery plan?
No, we have to go back to what our Constitution actually provides for, Article 1, Section 8, which says that we can actually have a credit system for long-term infrastructure development. We're not talking about balancing budgets. We're talking about what is it going to take to have, such as NASA, a manned space program for colonization of the moon and Mars that would be needed for all-out investment, to have all-out investment in economic recovery.
But you have to get the money somewhere. Are you going to borrow it, or are you going to tax and spend in some fashion?
Where are you going to get the money from?
Yeah.
Is you're going to get it from our federal government, from U.S. credit created. Secondly, what you would do is you would invest this credit in long-term infrastructure projects, such as what I'm calling for the North American Water and Power Alliance. Projects like this would actually put millions of people back to work in productive jobs. We don't have that any longer. Physical economic production is broken down. It's too many people thinking about a monetary solution for a physical economic collapse. It's not going to work.
So you have a sort of a broad view of the Commerce Clause, I guess, and I guess the Constitution you're citing, which Mr. Olson I'm sure will approve of you having, is that you can do anything you want under the Commerce Clause. Which is, isn't that the Democrat position?
I can't argue with you there. And I mean, the way we're going to get our economy back on track and our country back on track isn't with any sort of funky gimmicks. It's with what we've done throughout our history, believing in the American people, giving them their money back. You mentioned, stopping the size of government. We need to do that. In this plan we have, the Pledge to America, we pledge to freeze the discretionary non-defense accounts at the 2008 levels before this president came in and blew them up.
You know what that would mean?
Step.
That would mean a 20% cut in every agency such as Justice, Education, Interior, Commerce, and including, I'm sure, the agency that regulates and governs NASA. We haven't had a 20% reduction in non-discretionary spending in the history of the United States. The biggest was 5% after 1982. I mean, this is an enormous cut that you're proposing.
Well, David, I think you're probably comparing that cut to what happened in 2009 when the enormous increase in our budget happened with this current administration. But we're going to have to make some tough choices in our future right now. I mean, we have this out-of-control debt that the Democrat Party has inflicted upon America that's accelerated since this president's become our president. As you know, the largest increase in our debt occurred last year, $1.6 trillion. This year, we came down, the second highest, $1.5 trillion. That's nothing for this administration and this Democrat Congress to be proud of. We need to stop the growth of government, give the American people their money back, and watch the magic. Watch free enterprise and individual opportunity in America like our founding fathers envisioned. Watch that work.
Is that a Tea Party? Are you a Tea Party guy?
I've spoken to the Tea Parties before. The one comment about them, I think they're healthy for our democracy.
Well,
these are ordinary people.
Four Tea Party congressional candidates say Obama's not a citizen. 5 want to privatize or phase out Social Security and Medicare. 3 want to repeal the 16th and 17th Amendments to the Constitution. 8 want to eliminate one or more departments of government. Which of those views do you accept?
David, you're doing what happened to me up in Washington. When the Tea Party comes up there, someone like yourself, a very credible reporter, but uses the acts of a couple of people to paint all of us with that brush.
I'm not saying that you're painted anywhere. I said, do you subscribe to any of those views?
What I subscribe to at the Tea Party is what they're doing for our democracy. I mean, these are ordinary citizens coming out. One story I'll tell you, when they came up right before we passed the health care bill, we passed it on a Sunday, got a little problem with that because that's the Sabbath, but that aside, I talked to an individual from Pennsylvania, 44-year-old man, and asked him, so how'd you get involved in this, and what's going on in your life, and where do you think our country's going? He had never, ever voted in his life. Never. He didn't need to. He had a good wife, a couple of kids, nice house, good job. He's had the kids' college paid for, retirement. He didn't think he needed to. But he watched what this Democrat administration and this Democrat Congress were doing to our country and the just incredible increase in our debt, and he said, I've got to get involved. I don't want my children to have a lower quality of life than I had. And that's, the Tea Party, I think that's more the story about the Tea Partiers than some of the stuff that the media portray.
Something you and Mr. Sussman agree on, I'm sure, is that whoever's in Congress should be writing a letter to the president saying, do not appeal the ruling of the district judge that said that gays can serve in the military. 13,000 soldiers were kicked out of the military because of don't ask, don't tell.
But David,
shouldn't a member of Congress, you especially a libertarian, shouldn't you be writing and saying this type of freedom should not be infringed upon by government?
No, that decision should be made by courts.
Well, let's rewind back. First of all, we can cut a lot of this deficit by shutting down this war in Afghanistan for a decade, because this isn't making anyone rich but the bankers, and it's not making anyone rich but Halliburton and all the contracting companies $47 we're being charged for a six-pack of Coca-Cola when the soldiers want it. I'm for the soldiers and against the war, but that's ridiculous. We can take a meat axe to that right away. Osama bin Laden is either dead or he's never meant to be found, and I don't find that our nation is threatened. I find our nation is threatened by spending billions on these wars, and our border on the south is unprotected right now. I don't feel very secure with that.
You didn't answer my question. So we've got 26 countries that now allow gays to serve openly in the military.
I answered your question.
Well, yeah,
I mean, he's a military guy. He can answer.
I definitely can answer that. I mean, my concern here, David, in this arena is the government doesn't need to make these decisions. I mean, the people, our military leaders, are the one that we depend on for their expertise. And if they believe that somehow, gay, I have some issues with, but if they believe that people who are homosexual can serve our military, and they can, but there are all sorts of other issues, I will go with them. I mean, our leaders, that's who you follow. I mean, every time our president, our administration has second-guessed our leaders, like this president right now, it's not a good situation. So get the government out of our defense. Let the generals, the admirals make decisions about what our future force structure should be and who should be there in it.
Mr. Rogers, do you think public policy should be made in the courts or in Congress?
Public policy should be made in Congress, as it is constitutionally outlawed to do so. I mean, and put in place to do so. But let me go back to what you just said a second ago, because I think it's important. The question of the war in Afghanistan and what we are doing to actually completely destroy our military by allowing our troops to stay over in this unwarranted war in Afghanistan. But only that, we got to go a step further. The step further is that we're in a war where we're actually defending the drug fields and the poppy crops and having our young soldiers, men and women over there being killed by defending this drug operation. What have I said? I've actually said, let's eradicate the drug crops and get the heck out of there. And that's what we got to do. And why are we staying there? Because you have a president that's nothing more than a British puppet and people defending this insane policy. Secondly, what we have to do is, let's go back to the fact that there is no real there's no solution coming from the other side, coming from the Republican side, because if we're really going to take what the founding fathers have laid out on the table, then we would look at President Franklin Roosevelt, we will look at President Lincoln, and we'll see that they had a mission to restore our constitutional powers of real productive economy, as in the Tennessee Valley Authority, as in the Transcontinental Railway System.
And I think those presidents obeyed the Constitution when a court ruled that the constitutional provision was whatever, including, sadly, Dred Scott. So, I mean, are you opposed? You think that the courts have no role in telling the government what the Constitution means?
No, I don't think the courts have a very significant role in our society. That's the checks and balances. I go to elementary schools and talk to little kids about this, so let's just sort of throw that out there. What I want to get, is just talk about my Democrat opponents and some of the solutions. Republicans didn't have one. I'm sorry we can't go on longer, because I could walk you through every alternative solution we had to everything this administration has done to try to destroy America. And we had solutions. We had real solutions. But unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi and her liberal majority in the Congress would not let us debate those. It was an affront to our Constitution, and come November 2nd, we're going to see a change.
All right, so let's say there's a change in November, and the polls are right, and Republicans get close to the Senate, take control of the House. How do you put the brakes on the runaway freight train that Keisha's described, that is the Obama administration?
Well, Gary, there are two significant powers in our Constitution that our founding fathers gave the legislative branch, the Congress. One of them is the power of the purse. I mean, we can just not fund some of these things that have been passed and tell the White House, the President, Mr. President, if you want to make any progress or actually do something here, you need to listen to the people's representatives. Come talk to us and work something out that doesn't blow up our debt and that is good for the American people. The other power we're going to have is the power to subpoena. And I don't know about you, but if you could tell me how many czars have been put in this administration, I'd love to know it, because I have no idea. And they're out there operating like cabinet officers with these sort of powers, but no check on them, not having gone through the Senate for confirmation. And that power to subpoena is something we're going to use to bring these czars out into light of day.
Lame duck Congress, you'll pass the omnibus spending bill, I take it?
Well, I'm not going to speak. I haven't seen an omnibus spending bill yet, Dave. We don't know what's going to happen. The things I'm going to push for in the lame duck Congress again is making sure those tax the tax increase doesn't happen on January 1st, that the tax cuts of 01 and 03 are extended. That's going to do the most damage to our economy, and it's a very fragile state now.
Anybody have one short answer to whether or not in a lame duck Congress anything will happen?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what should happen. It should be Glass-Steagall. We have to push Glass-Steagall again.
I see.
And as they got out of Congress quick, fast, and in a hurry before they actually pushed it.
Now that is
should have
something.
been on the table.
That is something I think we should be revisiting. And thanks to you, Steve Sussman, for being here, Ms. Rogers, Congressman Olson.
Thank
Appreciate
you guys. Great
all
to see
of
you
you
again.
being here.
Thank you.
We couldn't get them to sit down with us, either together or separately, but Governor Rick Perry and Bill White did sit down separately with Evan Smith of the Texas Tribune for extended interviews. You can watch them on our page at HoustonPBS.org. Just click on the local program bar at red, white, and blue. You can also see something about our guests, follow-up discussions that we're going to have shortly, and more about the elections this season at that site. So until next time, get informed and get active.